Barry McGoey. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Barry, we have some good news. But the good news came attached with a lot of hard work. Am I correct? Am I wrong? Tell us about it.
Yes. Well, just the other day we received notification that the City of Yonkers Fire Department was awarded an $11.5 million SAFER grant from the federal government from FEMA, which will allow the city to hire 30 firefighters and fully pay for those firefighters for the next 3 years. That's all costs involved: salary, benefits, health insurance, any personnel cost involved with those 30 firefighters will be fully funded by the federal government through this grant program.
Barry, this is going to help the fire department itself, the city of Yonkers, the residents of city of Yonkers. We feel much safer when funds are available that will allow your fire department, our fire department, to be proficient and do the work that they need to be done. But to get this, how did it work? Was just an application? The grant came? What was involved? Give us the story from the beginning.
Well, from the beginning, it's important to note that these grant funds are not any part of the COVID-19 federal stimulus package. These grant funds, it's a recurring grant program that's been ongoing for about 15 years now. So these funds have been, they've been approved every year by Congress, approximately 300 to 350 million, depending upon the year. That's funded, so this was funded actually last year's federal budget. Every fire department or fire district in the country is eligible to apply for these funds, and there's different categories. However, there were some significant restrictions and strings attached to the funds as the program was initially set up. So it wouldn't have made a tremendous amount of sense. There would have been a significant cost to the city of Yonkers, well, a cost sharing to the city of Yonkers. So we were all hesitant to apply for something if we had to cover part of the cost. What I was able to do was sit down with my state association president, and we actually called our international association in Washington, D.C., and we pleaded with them in very strong terms to try to get FEMA to lessen the restrictions because of the COVID pandemic, because cities like Yonkers, we were the epicenter of COVID. At one point, our infection rate was twice of what New York City's was here in Yonkers. And our revenue streams in the city are down significantly, as they are in other cities. So some of the requirements for this grant just were going to make it almost impossible for different fire districts and cities to actually apply for it because of the cost sharing and the other strings attached. And the deadline was rapidly approaching. So as a result of our efforts, we were actually glad to hear a few days after our call to our people in Washington that the FEMA had actually lessened all of the restrictions, extended the deadline to apply, and therefore Yonkers, we sat down with the mayor's office and they agreed that now without all of these restrictions and the cost sharing, that it was in our best interest to apply for this, and that's what we did. We applied for a grant for 30 firefighters, $11.5 million over 3 years, and we were just awarded the full amount of our grant. It's because of our location right next to New York City, the type of city that we are, our population density, the hazards that we have. All of these things had to be articulated and pointed out in our grant so that we would be competitive. And at the end of the day, through a lot of hard work, a good grant application, and some after the fact lobbying with a lot of assistance from Senator Schumer, Senator Gillibrand, Congressman Elliot Engel, and the mayor himself, we were successful in convincing FEMA that Yonkers was worthy of one of the top grants ever awarded under this program. We received a grant which is, since the inception of the SAFER program, is in the top 20 as far as dollar amounts go. And mostly it's cities like Detroit, Los Angeles, Phoenix that received these awards over $5 million. We were very fortunate to get our full grant approved.
Barry, when you talk about 30 firefighters, are we talking about 10 brand new firefighters? Are we talking about job replacement? Are we talking about covering people that maybe retired lately? What does that mean? Define so the people can understand exactly what it means.
Okay, well, what happens in the fire department and many other departments in any municipality is that you have As time goes on, we're budgeted for a certain number of positions, and as time goes on, vacancies happen. And it happens through attrition, mostly, where we have members retire, and sometimes we have members are granted a disability pension from the retirement system. So over a period of time, although we were budgeted for 322 firefighters, as someone retires, now we're still budgeted for 322, but now we only have 321. And that, as the months proceed and the years proceed, that number grows. At the time we applied for this grant, we were 20 firefighters short. We had 20 vacancies due to retirements that had occurred in approximately a year and a half. And also some firefighters who had been injured and granted a disability pension from the retirement system. So the city of Yonkers right now is 23 firefighters short. When we applied for the grant, we asked for 30, was for our 20 firefighters the vacant positions that were due to attrition and retirement and promotions, and also an additional 10 firefighters to help cover the cost of the firefighters who are out on injury. So oftentimes we have members that are out for weeks or months and sometimes years while they're waiting for the state to act upon their disability retirement. So they can't come to work because of their disability, but they're still on the payroll. And that's what we'd done. We'd asked for them to fund the 20 vacant positions that we had, as well as an additional 10 positions to alleviate the overtime expenses that are incurred because of having members who are out injured waiting for the state to work on their application.
Now, the funds are just for salaries, or that includes benefits like medical, dental, and all the other stuff that comes associated with it?
It covers 100% of the personnel costs for those 30 firefighters. So that's their salary, that's their health insurance, that's their dental and vision coverage, it's their pension contributions. It's every single personnel cost is absorbed by the federal government for those 30 firefighters for the entire three-year period.
So that translates into savings for our city of Yonkers.
Yes.
Because we had a budget for a certain amount of firefighters, but now these grants are going to cover for those firefighters. That means a saving to our city. Am I correct on?
Absolutely. The city was about to hire 30 firefighters about a week and a half ago, before we got this grant, and the city was going to incur the expense of those 30 firefighters. Those were budgeted spots in our budget. The budget had been approved, and now those positions will be filled, but it won't be coming from the fire department's budget or the city of Yonkers' budget. It'll be coming from the federal government's budget. Every single dollar associated with these firefighters will be picked up for 3 years by the federal government. And at the end of the 3-year period, the city will resume covering that cost as they've done every year and will continue to do in years forward. So this is a win-win-win, for the city of Yonkers, for the fire department, and for Local 628.
And for our residents.
Absolutely.
Now, can those funds from the grant be used for buying equipment, meaning trucks, PPEs, whatever equipment you deem necessary for the fire department? Or is it exclusively for salaries, benefits, or firefighters related expenses?
This is exclusively for the personnel costs. So no, it cannot be used for any capital assets, can't be used for equipment. It's strictly for the personnel costs. And it's the federal government has this program for almost 20 years now. It's to make sure that the money goes to hire firefighters and not to be used for any other purpose. There are very strict guidelines under all the federal programs, and especially under this FEMA program, where they don't even give the money all up front. What they'll do is basically the money is in an account, and as we expend it, periodically every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks, the city actually puts in and what they call draws down from the balance. So the federal government is used to the objectives of their programs sometimes misused or abused, and now they've developed some very strict guidelines to ensure that the money is going for that intended purposes. If they want to provide money for fire trucks, there's other grant programs out there available for that. And the same thing, if you got a grant to buy a fire truck through another federal program, you wouldn't be allowed to use that money for personnel. So there are very specific requirements with these grants, and it's very important that everybody comply, because otherwise they could claw back the money. And we've been successful in the past with all our grants. It remained in compliance, and we're hopeful that this will be a seamless 3-year period where, thank God the federal government is stepping up here, providing some relief to the fire department and to the city.
Now, Barry, I know that you are very much involved with politics in the sense of you have a feeling of what's going on in our city. And I'm sure that you know about the layoffs affecting our city, Board of Education. And I have spoken to many people on the street, and they were afraid that those layoffs might also affect the first responders, meaning fire department, police department, and other first responders. We are happy that this probably helped prevent that. Did it help prevent any layoffs that you might think of for your members?
Well, we're hoping. We were already 23 firefighters vacant. We had 23 vacancies, so we had openings that had occurred over the past year and a half. So we had assumed that if there was any cuts, most of the cuts would have been absorbed by those vacant positions. However, with the fire department, we have to backfill in overtime. So oftentimes that doesn't make sense either, because now instead of paying someone salary, you're just paying somebody else overtime to fill that vacancy in our chart. This doesn't say there wouldn't be any further cuts to the fire department. There's probably other ways they could try to come up with to save money. But as far as firefighters on the fire trucks, I think for a period of time now going forward, there won't be cuts. That'll be directly an impact to the residents of the city of Yonkers, which is a good thing. And it is unfortunate that almost on a yearly basis, Yonkers goes through the economic crisis, and there's no money, and we don't get funded properly from the state or from the federal government. And we get used to it when you're a union leader in the city of Yonkers. It's kind of like that's the way it is. However, you'd have to have your head stuck in the sand to not realize the economic devastation that this virus has caused, Yonkers, New York City, New York State, and the entire country. So while I'm very happy that we got this grant, and it may stave off some cuts, and hopefully at least cuts that will impact people in the fire department, we're very concerned about the funding for our schools. We're very concerned about the funding for our police department and our public works department and all those people that make the city of Yonkers run. Our tax revenues are down. Sales tax revenues are down dramatically. Our hotel occupancy tax is down. Our income tax is down. The largest employer in the city of Yonkers is Raceway Casino. They've been closed for 4 months. Those thousands of employees have not been paying income tax, and Yonkers gets a piece of the income tax. Red light camera revenue, property taxes, every single revenue stream is down. And we like to say our expenses are down, but like in the fire department and in all the other services that the city provides, now we need extra people to help clean. We need extra money for equipment, for masks. We were going out in the middle of this pandemic. The Yonkers Fire Department didn't skip a beat. As a matter of fact, I had said, we had worked as best with the administration, the fire department administration, and the mayor's office as we ever had during this pandemic. We, on our own, sat down with the administration and lessened many of the restrictions that were in our contract. So basically, we had certain work rules that we said, okay, we're going through extraordinary times here, and we're not going to be sitting there and say, no, we can't, no, we won't, no, you can't. We worked together. We were very successful. I was happy to sit down with the mayor and try to work these things through and not be at odds, as oftentimes management and labor find ourselves. But we all came together in the fire department to work together. We were responding to literally hundreds of calls per day at the height of the pandemic. Our members were risking their own safety and the safety of their families. We had over 24 members who were tested positive for COVID. Thank God, all of them recovered. The fire department were generally young, healthy people in good shape. So the virus didn't have any. We didn't have any of these other. They say a weakened immune system, or you have certain conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure. None of our members succumbed to it, thank God, because they're young and healthy. But we had a risk, and the risk is still ongoing. We are taking major precautions. And I guess my point is that there was a lot of extra expense because of the pandemic. We had to wear Tyvek suits. We had to wear P100 masks and the N95 masks. The amount of surgical gloves that we go through now, thousands and thousands of pairs of surgical gloves per week, and masks. So not only did we had to maintain, we had to have extra personnel on for decontamination of our members that went on to some of these, active COVID, full-blown COVID with body fluids of every sort, and our members were being contaminated and we'd have to have decontamination crews go out and decontaminate them on the scene, because we can't risk getting back into a fire truck and bringing it back to the firehouse and contaminating the fire truck and the firehouse. So we worked together with the administration, but there were significant additional costs to the city in the fire department, and I'm sure in every other department. And I just wanted just one point, because I know you had another question, but this is not the end. Yes, we're very politically active. We know about politics and how you have to lobby for things. I'm very happy the fire department got this money, but this was not stimulus money. I want to make that clear. This was an ongoing program like they had last year and the year before. We need significant stimulus money from our federal government. We need money for our cities and municipalities to make up for the lost revenue, to keep providing the services at our schools and our fire stations and our police precincts and our garbage facilities, our street cleaning capabilities. We just can't do it with the revenue that's here now. We need help. We're hopeful that the federal government, both sides, will put aside their differences and respond to our 911 call. Because right now, we're saying help. Help our fire department, our police department, our teachers, our Department of Public Works. We need the help. This is not time for partisan politics. They really should put a standalone bill and let the other side dare the other side, the opposite side, not to support it. But every city, every city and state, whether they're a blue state or a red state, or in between, needs federal help. And we shouldn't be playing politics with this, because we're talking about public safety, we're talking about education for our children. There's so many things at stake here, and we need it. Even though this is great, we need additional funding from the federal government and the state government.
I agree, Barry. I agree that we should put the American people above party lines. Look and do what's best for the people and not what is best for you personally, because as we all know, what is best for a politician is not necessarily best for America, and some of them are confusing it. Now let me tell you about a statement that just came through from Questy Alvarez. I feel like the police officers should got some, because they are on the streets more than firefighters and risk their lives every day being outside, like you, like the fire department. Just my opinion. You know what she's trying to say, that the money you got should have gotten for them as well, or a little bit of it. Explain why it happened this way. You are two unions. I guess you have filed for different grants, or same grant if they're available. How does that work?
Absolutely, and I appreciate her opinion, and I'm sure people feel that way, but the reality is that's the way these grant programs work, and they're specifically designed so they can only be used for the purpose that it was approved by law. These are grant programs that are specifically authorized by Congress, and they have to be used for that purpose. And although I don't do it, I could begrudge the police department every year, because there's many, many more grant opportunities for the federal government through the FBI, for the police department, from the federal government, through the FBI, through the Justice Department, through FEMA, and they do get grants of all types and sorts that the fire department never gets. So this is not us against them. This is, we saw an opportunity, we seized it, we worked as hard as we could, and we got it. And we got one of the largest awards ever awarded in this grant program, because we deserve it. And I'm the first one to say, the Yonkers Police Department deserves it as well. So does our schools, so does our Public Works Department, so do all the departments in the city of Yonkers, and in every municipality throughout this country. So it's a great thing, the fire department got this grant, but let's not begrudge because another department didn't get it.
Well, exactly. Well, that's what I wanted to also point out. That there is no war between fire department and police department. You are two organizations that we need, the city of Yonkers needs. We appreciate you both. But like you said in my question before, that the grant must be used for what the grant was given for. You don't have the flexibility, or the city say, okay, well, police department so needs, so let's take 2 or 3 million out of the 11 million and give it to the other department. It does not work that way.
Even if we wanted to, we couldn't do it. It's these dollars are designed specifically to go to pay for firefighters. They can't be used to buy masks, PPE, fire trucks, firehouses. It can only go to hire firefighters. And if we don't want the money, then we don't hire the firefighters, and they give that $11.5 million to another fire department that'll only use it for firefighters. And like I said before, there are many, many, many times more grants for law enforcement than there are for fire departments. So like I said, we saw this opportunity, we seized it, and if we don't take advantage of it, somebody else will.
How is your membership reacting to this?
Well, everybody's very happy. There's always a concern that many people, just like in every department, in the police department, in our schools, that people are concerned of getting laid off. So the fact that we had 23 vacancies was a comfort level for them, that they'll eliminate the vacancies before they eliminate my job. Now the fact that we'll be hiring 30 additional firefighters, that's great news for a lot of people. That's great news for our city, its residents, its taxpayers. It's great news for our firefighters. It's great news for those 30 firefighters who are going to get a job, and not just a job, but a career that is unimaginably important and just makes your life. When you become a firefighter, you become part of a family. You change who you are, how you behave, how you perceive people and your community. That it's a way of life. So it's a great opportunity for those people, and we're going to work. We'll stand together, side by side, with the mayor, with our state delegation, with our governor, with the police department, with our teachers, in trying to get more money, not just for the fire department, for every department in the city of Yonkers, and every department, every municipality throughout this region.
But Barry, it's nice to see that in time of crisis, when things gets tough, the tough gets going, but they get going in a united way. Sometimes we see in fire department and mayor's offices butting heads and get against each other. But when time came to get together and work for the best of the city of Yonkers and its residents, you came together. You put aside the differences and you work for the best of the city. And I think that it's something to condone and say, job well done. No,
I've been president of Yonkers Local 628 for 10 years now, and the mayor's been in office for 9 years. So we've had to bang heads, unfortunately. This is a tough city. There's always tough times economically, and budgets and contracts and all these other issues. And no one's probably fought more than Mike Spano and Barry McGoey. However, like you said, the chips were down. We came together, and we saw our goal. We worked together on that goal. We achieved it, and now we're not going to stop here. Our goal is we're going to work together. I think myself and Mayor Spano and all the other unions are going to really start getting together and lobbying our state officials as well as our federal officials to provide additional funding. There's a lot of politics in Washington, and unfortunately you have these stimulus bills, and we have an election coming up. So the Democrats want to put their poison pills in there. The Republicans want to put their poison pills in there. But they all agree that municipalities and states need funding. Florida needs it, Texas needs it, as well as California and New York. It's just not a New York problem. So we challenge them to put aside all those poison pills and let's focus on one issue. Senator Gillibrand and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump should put everything aside and how can we get some money to our municipalities to maintain the services that they need for public safety, for education, for public health, and not put all some of these, the political hot button, as soon as the Democrat bill hits the Senate, it's dead on arrival, and the Republican bill hits the House, it's dead on arrival. They all contain money for cities and states, right? So let's pull all the other stuff off and just focus on the important thing. Because many of these other issues, they've been fighting over, whatever it is, abortion rights for 40 years. We haven't been fighting over the health and well-being of our municipalities for 40 years. We need this funding. These are times we haven't seen since the Great Depression, and we need it, or there will be devastating cuts. We need them to step up and grow up and actually provide some funding for us.
Barry, before we started this interview, I said to myself, I am not going to talk about Trump. That's what I said to myself. But you brought him up.
I didn't bring him up.
You just said.
I brought up both of them.
You said Trump.
Well, I said Pelosi and I said Schumer too. I'm not going to get into. I don't want to make this partisan, Ben.
No.
That's not going to get.
I am not going to make this a partisan. What I'm trying to say is use your words to give an example that we should put parties aside and
absolutely
work for the best of the country and its citizens. But we have somebody that it looks like is benefiting Republican municipalities and states.
But Ben, we have to be so careful not to fall into this anti-Trump, anti-Schumer narrative. That's why we're in the problem right now, because
I don't wanna talk
both
about
sides,
Trump.
and we can talk about Trump, and I can tell you a lot of negative things about Trump, but I can tell you just as many negative things about the opposition.
Right.
We have to focus on what's going to help the people in the city of Yonkers that watch Yonkers Voice. We need money. We don't need the partisan on the left or the partisan on the right. And I didn't mention Trump. I mentioned Trump, Schumer, Pelosi, all of them.
My point is, all these senators, congressmen, regardless of which political side they fall into, let's forget about that and let's talk and do things that will help the people of United
Absolutely.
States.
And that's why I said we should do a standalone bill.
Yes.
When the Republicans put things in there that they know the Democrats are not going to support, the bill is dead on arrival. When the Democrats put things in the bill that they know the Republicans are not going to support, it's dead on arrival. There's one thing we should all be supportive of, is providing public safety, public education, and public health. And I challenge either side to put a standalone bill together. Take all the political hot button issues out, whether it's a Second Amendment or abortion rights, because we can argue about that for the next 100 years. And we can talk about Trump is great and Trump is bad and Pelosi's great and Pelosi's bad. But the reality is, we'll just argue about it. We need them to take action. Mike Spano doesn't have 6 years to figure this out. He needs money in the next 6 weeks. Andrew Cuomo, Bill de Blasio, mayors and administrators and office holders all over this country to make or break our municipalities is whether or not we get this funding. And we can't clutter it. We can't make it partisan. Put a standalone bill together. And we should be demanding it. The United States citizens should demand that there's a standalone bill. And now dare the Republicans not to support it. Dare President Trump not to sign it. Dare Nancy Pelosi not to bring it to the House. There should be a standalone bill to help our municipalities that are in desperate need. We don't have, we want to wait till Election Day. We don't have until November 15th.
Yeah.
We need this money in October.
Yes.
Or there's going to be devastating cuts in our schools, in our public safety, all throughout municipalities throughout this country.
Barry. That's my point. My point is make a statement that the politicians, regardless if they are this way or that way, put that aside and work for the best of United States and its citizens. Forget about the politics.
Right.
Like you said, before the bill gets to whatever it's going to go, it's
dead.
already dead.
Right.
We already know that it's going no further than that. Now, we're going to move another segment.
This is part two?
This is part two, because people of Yonkers wants to know. Okay, they want to know about minorities in the fire department, minorities in the police department. Why don't we have higher officials within this department or that department? And I know that a few months ago, I don't remember exactly the date, we had a class for firefighters, and you were focusing, when I say you, I mean the city of Yonkers, into hiring minorities and women. How did that go?
Well, we do. We were actually under a federal consent decree regarding a discrimination case which goes back into the late 70s, early 80s. So we're under federal oversight to hire firefighters to be more reflective of the community we serve, and we specifically to have more African Americans, Hispanic, and women. So as part of the ongoing examination process, the fire department and the city do an outreach to try to encourage, you can't force somebody to take the exam, so what we do is we try to encourage as many minorities and women to take the test. We have firefighters that are basically taken off the line and go work, go to the schools, go to the high schools, go to some of the colleges, some of the vocational schools, go to the neighborhoods, go to the playgrounds, the basketball courts, and talk to guys. Hey, why don't you talk? I did it myself. I'd be in a supermarket and say, you live in Yonkers? The test is coming up. Because I see a couple of, nice African-American, guys work in the supermarket. I gave out several applications myself, trying to do recruitment. Our test was supposed to be in March. We have a list that's expiring. It's going to be expiring this March coming up. So usually the list lasts 4 years. We had a new test coming up. There was ongoing recruitment for the test in March. Unfortunately, because of COVID, the test couldn't occur. They've recently rescheduled the test for October. Now you couldn't reapply, so it was anybody who had applied for the March test will be taking the test in October. The city and the fire department offer some test-taking skill courses. So basically, seven or eight times before each week, before the test, they have some classes to try to, test-taking tips and techniques for the people, anybody who wants to go. They encourage women and minorities to take these courses and classes, which are free. The test will be in October, the written test. Then it will be compiled. It goes up to Albany, and a list will be returned to the Civil Service Department in Yonkers here. When that's going to occur, I mean, I had to surrender my license plate to DMV a couple months ago, and it took an extraordinarily long time to get the documents back. So we're not expecting this to be a quick process. If the written exam is in October, then the city will get the results from the written exam. Then they'll have to schedule a physical agility test, because with firefighters you have to have the physical agility, and it's a very demanding physical agility test. That will be conducted. It takes a long time even to conduct that, because I think we had 1,500 people sign up for this written exam. We'll see how many show up and how many pass, and then once you get the people that pass, then they schedule them for the physical component. So we may not have an actual list from our efforts from last year, till halfway through 2021.
So I think it's important to emphasize, because I get a lot of emails, texts, people that don't want to express their opinion on public, so they send me emails.
Sure.
And things.
Same thing with me.
Oh, it happens to you too, right? So one of the concerns that this person had, well, I'm not going to apply or pay for the fee. I said, well, if you don't apply, you will never get called. You have to apply. That's step one. You have to pay a fee. I think there is $100 fee, correct?
Yes.
So this person told me, well, I don't have the $100 fee. I said, you know what? I cannot help 100 people, but I can help one. So I offered to pay for his fee. He didn't show up. Okay. So lots of people do complain because they don't get hired by the police department, they don't get hired by the fire department, but they don't apply for those positions. So it's important, I think, to motivate the people that, look, if you want to apply for fire department or police department, you must have certain qualifications. And if you have those qualifications, then you must apply.
Absolutely. And my heart goes out to a lot of the young people, because $100 to take an examination is a lot of money. For some of us, $100 is nothing. But for some people, in their circumstances, $100 is a lot of money. And just seeing it there. And I wish there was some way that we could help, through the outreach program, because I know if there are instances I've heard of where people like yourself, benefactors, actually paid that $100 for that young person. There's a cost associated with these examinations. However, that $100, is too much. And it's my understanding that if people truly let somebody know that the $100 was a problem, that there were ways that the people in the recruitment office could have actually got some funds to assist them. But I really just wish it could be a more nominal amount. I believe when I took the exam 20 years ago, it was $10. So, it's something reasonable. I know costs have gone up, but if we want to encourage, we truly want to encourage, minority kids that live in, the projects, kids that live in a very, low-income neighborhood. If we really want to encourage them and get them onto the fire department, then we shouldn't have a fee that high. And I wish there wasn't, because I can just tell you, this job is life-changing. It's a good job. We give up, and I had to remind a lot of my members that they should be very thankful at this time right now, because we have a job, right? We go into public service, right? Whether you're a police officer or a teacher or a garbage man or a firefighter or a clerk in City Hall, you're never going to make the big bucks. They'll complain about the pension here or this salary here or there, but there's many, many places where you can make a lot more money than in civil service. And we take it for a few reasons. Because first, there's a calling. It's something I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a good part of my community. I want to be someone that's looked up to. I want to be somebody who enjoyed their job. I want to be somebody who had a steady income and who had benefits, good benefits, and then eventually get a pension. So those checked off everything on my list. And if somebody from one of our low-income housing projects, or just in the neighborhood where their parents are struggling and they were immigrants, this is a life-changing job. And to think that we would potentially prevent somebody from having that opportunity, at least to take the test, for $100, it almost seems unconscionable. And I wish there was something we could all do, maybe through, the network with the churches or community groups, where we could create a fund so that wouldn't be the case. And if somebody had, income problems, and some people have pride. I'm sure, there are some programs there that, if you went and you told so-and-so that you couldn't afford it, they would come up with the money. But should we ask somebody to put their pride in their back pocket. You know, it should be, we want you, you're a part of our city, you're a part of our community, and we're going to try to remove all the roadblocks and not put a financial roadblock. It's kind of like the polling tax, you know, from years ago, where you said you had to pay taxes in order to vote. We shouldn't have to pay an exorbitant amount of money to take a fire department test, a police department test, or any other test, because they are, for somebody who's low income or in a minority community that's low income, it's a life-changing opportunity, and we should try to do everything we can to encourage it. And this union fully supports our efforts to become more diverse, to be more reflective of our community, and I believe we are, because, you know, we go to a fire, you know, we work together. When we put our PPE on, from head to toe, you don't know, all you see is the turnout gear, the mask, you hear it, you see the lights, you don't know who's behind that mask. So, and we depend upon each other, and that's, if society acted like firefighters, and you know, we have our moments, we have some bad apples, we have some bad actors, but overall, we have a tremendous, great group of guys. We're looking for some women. We're maybe the next list, there'll be some women recruits, but you know, we really try to work together, and if society was like firefighters, there'd be a lot less problems, I believe.
Well, on that note, we conclude our interview, unless, Barry, you have anything else maybe I forgot to mention or I forgot to ask, and you want to take this opportunity to mention it.
No, I think, you know, just as I sometimes text you, thank you for everything you do for the city of Yonkers, because you truly are as local news gets.
Thank you, Barry. And until next time.